Hello and welcome to the Eco-Modernist Channel Live. I'm Carl Pauls. I'm here with Gabe Ignetti and our special guest. Don Davis is the illustrator of the book, The High Frontier, Human Colonies in Space. This was written by the late Gerard K. O'Neill. He'll speak with us about his illustrations and the book. Welcome to the program, Don.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. So I understand you've got some slides for us, and I'm going to put those on screen. And here your presentation is showing.
Oh, we're coming right into my space colony art show, eh? Excellent. All right. Well, I in the mid 70s, I was very much into space. I still am. In those days, I was working for the U.S. Geological Survey, the branch that was involved with supporting our Apollo expeditions. So I got to know a lot about the geology of the moon and later of Mars. And this later kind of folded into another episode where I heard about the idea of building giant space structures and using lunar soil basically as a large part of the raw materials, because part of the things the moon expeditions taught us was a large amount of metal and glass that's inside of a lunar soil, and that could be processed out once one got the logistics taken care of. But anyway, the whole idea of space colonization came to me rather suddenly in a newspaper article and in the San Francisco Chronicle. And this was an article that kind of unveiled the potential for giant space structures and people moving into them. And so this was something, when I saw this article, I was enthralled by the concept, and I did some snooping around and found out where Gerard K. O'Neill was in Princeton. I called him up and wrote him, and we started corresponding. And he was at once intrigued by my wanting to do paintings of this concept. So I started to write in doing these with his guidance. I was part of a correspondence where he and a few other people were in on this loop of discussing the potential, the possibility of large space structures. And this is an example of one of the things that was sent to this very small group of, I guess you'd call them subscribers to his newsletter. This is a diagram showing the part of the end cap of one of the giant cylindrical colonies. You'll notice on the left the tapering portions of the diagram. Those are like gores on a globe. You could cut those out and glue them together, and you'd make part of the round end cap of a large cylinder. So anyway, the thing is, the geometry of these things has to be designed in order to provide a safe living environment for the inhabitants, and also to admit sunlight into the interior, and also to keep out the cosmic rays. So anyway, I started taking all the figures that were in the articles and in the correspondence about what a giant cylindrical space colony would be like. And this is an example of a diagram I made in preparation for my paintings, showing a cutaway of the cylinder, and there are markings there showing the where I would see certain things looking vertically in perspective. It was really a matter of creating a perspective drawing of this giant geometrical thing that we're on the inside of. So a step from that would be to create a final preparatory drawing for a painting. So this is an example of taking the perspective drawings and extrapolating from that here and there, and showing the view looking down the long axis of this cylinder. And was a drawing that was transferred later on to an illustration board to create the actual work. And I ended up doing this view 3 times to show very different potential lighting conditions inside such a space colony. So here on the left, we see the normal view where the sunlight is being admitted into the interior using these external mirrors. And there's three, basically along the length of the cylinder, three giant windows. And then those are interspersed with three long habitats, like green areas. So that's a normal daytime view. In the middle, we have a view that is rather rare, but once in a great while, the colony is going to slip into the Earth's shadow, just like the moon occasionally does. And when that happens, the sunlight is cut off except for a dim reddish lighting. So we see on the very top the sun and the Earth reflected in the mirror, and we see the lurid lighting of this with the clouds changing red. And on the extreme right, we have a view of the nighttime being inside such a giant habitat, where they can tilt the mirrors and get and move the sunlight elsewhere and give the inhabitants nighttime. So it was a lot of fun imagining what this would be like, not only as a perspective view, but under different lighting conditions. At that time, I was also just beginning to really enjoy photography of nature, clouds, lighting, and such. So I was able to use a lot of my experience and knowledge of perspective and such to create such views. And here's a close-up looking down the long axis of the giant cylindrical colony. There were like three models. Model 3 was like 20 miles long. So I wanted to paint the big views. Here's a diagram I made showing the, it's an extension of that very early thing you saw with the gores, a perspective view showing one of the habitat zones, and just trying to work out how big it would be, what kind of numbers I might need to know. And there's kind of in the lower right center, kind of a Maltese cross that I put in to show the point of view of a painting that I wanted to do, looking across part of the interior, but at a different angle. So this is the view of the interior of the giant Model 3 colony, showing something of the scale, the potential scale of such a structure that would be a home to perhaps millions of people. And when I asked Gerard O'Neill what he thought the interior of the colony should look like, what he imagined it being like, he told me a little bit about Italian hill towns built on slopes and such. But most importantly, he mentioned to me his impression of being up in Sausalito, looking down on the San Francisco Bay and seeing boats and villages and such, and lots of trees. And so I incorporated the San Francisco Bay Area into this work. Also, the tree-covered hills and such. I grew up around in the Mid-Peninsula with these wonderful forested hills with the fog occasionally coming over. So I wanted to immortalize my stomping grounds that I loved in this image, which I think is probably my most widely reproduced and influential image. Now, these colonies, in order to grasp what they're like, what they're about, it requires knowledge of their geometry, their shape, what they would look like from different angles. So this is a view, a preliminary drawing for an exterior view of that same cylindrical colony view. So this shows something of the preparatory work that I put into these works. It's a perspective, detailed drawing, working out a lot of the visual problems and such. And here is the final painting of this exterior view of the Model 3 cylindrical habitat. And we have part of the land area in daylight on the left, where the mirrors are reflecting the sunlight, and part of it is at night. And it's fun playing with possible lighting, perspective, and such. These kinds of works were a great deal of fun. And I did many more drawings than paintings, of course, for the paperback edition of The High Frontier. Now, the thing about these giant habitats, as I mentioned before, they've got three main factors that have to be included in their design. One is how to admit the sunlight into the interior. The other is how to provide some kind of equivalent to gravity, and the third is to keep out cosmic rays. And so these diagrams are the preliminary sketches for a wheel-shaped space colony, a smaller, more realizable in the foreseeable future design that the NASA Ames and Stanford University conjured up in their 1975 summer study, which I attended numerous meetings of and picked the brains of people and ended up creating some works of that design. And here's the final painting showing this Stanford torus, as they called it. And we see this big mirror basically on the top reflecting the light. And let me go back briefly on the right drawing here. That's the drawing I did to try to work out the mirror reflection on the giant disk mirror above the colony, and also some details. The left drawing is more to work out the perspective. So the product of all of this work is this view showing the a closer view of the torus. You can see the green areas on the inside of the wheel where the sunlight is being reflected into the interior. And on the right, we see another one of these space habitats, the entire thing showing a long extension with solar power or other power sources at the bottom. And on the left, by the way, we have another artifact of those days where we were thinking about building giant solar collectors that would be orbited at high orbit above the Earth to broadcast, in essence, energy down to the surface. And this was seen as a potential alternative, which its day may yet come, but it's got a long ways to go before it can even dream of being competitive with other energy sources. The interior of this Stanford torus design was also a lot of fun to work out. So this is, again, my perspective drawing, trying to visualize how things would look in there, the curvatures, I have little like ellipses there trying to show how things would look if they were there. And here's the final product of this work. Another one of my widely reproduced views showing the interior. And I tended to differ a little from some of the other portrayals because I wanted to show these things as being green, as much greenery as possible, forests, plants, and as well as habitat. In fact, I imply in this view, you can kind of look below the ground level. There's layers of places where people live and work as well. But the overriding vision that I had in all these paintings was not just a technological thing like a space station wheel that we saw in the 50s, but the idea of creating a small world of its own with its own self-contained ecosystem where we've learned enough in this future world about the intricacies and interactions of the ecosystem in this planet where we've learned how to set this process going in a smaller area and basically create closed, stable ecosystems. And it's a mighty big challenge, but I think that by the time we're able to do this, we will have learned enough about our own planet. We'll have the equivalent of a Gaia genome project where the intricacies, as much as has survived by that time, will be mapped, and it'll be all the dynamics and such that we need to know will be part of the body of knowledge that we will use in order to create environments that people can live that would be more like the Earth, more like some places that they know and love, rather than some submarine-like claustrophobic place that we now associate with space travel. Now, the third design, we had the cylinder, we had the wheel. The third design that Gerard O'Neill worked on quite a bit. He didn't work that much on the summer study, as I recall, the design. But this is called the Bernal sphere. It's a habitat that is basically a hollow globe with the areas near the poles are on slopes, and the area near the equator is a little river there. And the thing is a giant rotating colony. And on either side, we see these rings, and these are modules. They're called agricultural areas. That's where they would be growing crops and such. But it's made of a modular system that can be put into rings and then stacked rings to make large areas of pressurized, useful area. Now, this is a cross-section drawing, a preliminary that I was preparing for the paperback edition of The High Frontier. And originally I had a scheme for I was trying to figure out how the mirrors would work, how they would be configured. And Jerry looked at my original drawing and he said, "Oh, wait a minute, this isn't right. It's the mirrors are too big. Whoops, pardon me. The mirror." So he figured out that I would be delivering too much sunlight into the interior. So he made some corrections, and he gave me these sheets of calculations. This is in his handwriting, where O'Neill figured out for me how big the mirrors should be for that particular habitat design. And of course, for me, math is kind of like looking at hieroglyphics. So I took his word for it. So this is the final configuration of how the mirrors would be designed to admit sunlight into the interior of this design. Here's an exterior drawing I made showing the Bernal sphere habitat. The sphere itself is tucked away inside the shielding and mirrors and such. Near us, we can see these rings, these concentric stacked rings with the agricultural areas. Now, here's the diagram basically showing the habitat, the interior of the habitat. On either side, we see these large windows near the poles that admit the sunlight. And I have put a river at the equator. That's going to be downhill, so why not? And this is a color painting I did for the cover of the Bantam edition of The High Frontier, which is the best edition, I might add, showing my conception of what it might look like. And again, I'm showing as much greenery as I possibly can. And it's a large design that I guess this was considered a bit more feasible than the giant cylinders. Now, I mentioned earlier the rings, the areas where the agriculture areas are. This is a preliminary for a painting I did showing the construction of the Bernal sphere. We can barely see the interior on the very top through one of the mirrors, the windows rather. And on the bottom, we see the stacked rings being worked on. Here's the final painting of this particular concept. And again, we're looking down into the agricultural areas through a convenient gap in the mirrors where they're being built. And we see along the long axis, a pole, which is another mirror helping to reflect the sunlight. So the basics of this agricultural zone was the Crystal Palace. This is a modular glassed-in area that O'Neill designed. This is a sketch by him showing the concept of the Crystal Palace, where we have these 20-meter square sections, and they can be joined in to make a wheel and then stacked various wheels in order to make a larger pressurized area. And these were, again, initially thought of as being agriculture. So this is an empty area, a Crystal Palace area where nothing's inside, but we see an idea of the modules joined together. And here's the construction of the Bernal sphere. And we have the Crystal Palace habitats on the right, on the lower right, and the habitat sphere being slowly built on the left and the upper left. This is a scratchboard drawing, by the way. And one of the paintings, the drawings that I did for the paperback High Frontier, and this was a 2-page spread in that one. I still have all the originals of these too. That was a great project. This shows the use of these habitat rings, the agricultural area concept or farms inside. This is part of a fisheye view where we're looking up. It's like you're using a 180-degree lens and pointing it straight up. So it's a lot of fun doing these perspective views. And here's another use, potentially used for the Crystal Palaces as a habitat area. It could be just built and built up and added to and such. So this is one idea of the use of that space. And we have other ideas, giant habitats that, again, the more we can do of these, the more variations we'll be able to try. And this is my fantasy of having a very large habitat where basically a wildlife refuge supplementing those on Earth has been established. I've got some California condors there. And so to me, the idea of the high frontier is not just a place to migrate to. It is, but it's an opportunity to make use of the wisdom that we're going to gather about Earth, about our ecosystem, about what makes life a stable thing on this world, and to apply some of that knowledge to create new places where life can exist. And it's something that has different variations, but I think the idea will be around for a long time in a lot of forms. And although it has yet to have its day, it's one of those things that's going to be waiting on the shelves of history to be pulled off, dusted over, and built up one of these days. So this is my presentation of images and paintings and drawings on the high frontier.
Thank you. That's really great. And I wonder, do you want to put up one of your favorites, or maybe one of the pencil illustrations, and we'll put our faces back on the screen for this.
All right, let me see. Oh, how about this one?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite drawings of all time. So Scratchboard is a great medium. It's basically a thick cardboard that's coated with a gesso-like white stuff that you can draw into it with, or brush onto it with ink, and then scratch out lines if you want. So you can do white lines on black as well as black on white, and you can correct mistakes, which is a real blessing in my trade. Yeah. So
back before digital, yeah, that absolutely would be. That's yeah, this is wonderful stuff. So the visions of humanity in the stars is kind of something that I think work like yours is really foundational to the concepts that we're still coming up with, and so thank you for sharing that with us. It's really great stuff. Gabe, did you have any comments or any directions you wanted to take this? You're not coming in, Gabe.
Hello. Hear me?
A little better.
All right. What would the first time about?
Your audio's not working very well, Gabe. Well,
why we've been having trouble.
Yeah, it's much more obvious now that I've got my studio back together, my headphones on, but we really need to work on Gabe's audio. So the book is The High Frontier: Human Colonies in Space. Tell us a little bit about the book and about what like under what the context was that it was published. I don't even look up what year this was published in.
Jeepers, I think it was 75, mid 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And the book was a real interesting thing. It first started off with a article in Physics Today, which was summarized in that press release that I alluded to at the beginning of my presentation. And the idea of humanity expanding into space is an old one, but it lacked quite a bit of the foundational building blocks of like visualizing how this would go about. Apollo, the expeditions to the moon, brought back samples which showed us that there's a lot of titanium and glass in lunar materials, stuff that could be processed, and materials could be made from that and such. And so the book started out from a discussion in a Princeton classroom that Jerry taught. The question was, is a planet the best place for an expanding technological civilization? And his class went to work on that, and they came up with the idea of using extraterrestrial materials. And if you have to launch everything off the Earth, you're doomed from the start. And I don't care how cheap they get rockets to pull things off of the Earth's gravity. They have to figure out a way to mine materials from the moon or asteroids or even comets, places where you don't need that much energy in order to get back and forth from. And so the idea of mining the moon, basically taking like a football field size area and digging out 10 feet of area and processing that material into metal and glass, that kind of worked out very well as the idea was refined and worked on, and it's looked like a better and better possibility. So I think it's the kind of thing that it captured a lot of people's imaginations, and it's a kind of thing that it's going to sit on the shelves of history waiting to be realized, like the English Channel Tunnel was for many, many years. A inviting technological goal that one day may see its day come.
We've definitely got that opportunity that is really, it's fantastically exciting to think that we could be on the verge of building into space, seeing humans live in space, manufacturing happening in space. It either, for us to proliferate into space or to build energy systems that power us here on Earth. These are all wonderful, fantastic possibilities inspired by the sci-fi of the 70s and 80s. And it's a shame that like many technologies, these ideas went on pause, and we've just held ourselves back from really working together and reaching out into the stars. That's something that I think we can all, wish we could recapture that energy.
Yes, indeed. The late 60s is really a time of former boundaries being dissolved, and concepts of what was possible were really beginning to be circulated. So, the potential of having other places to live, other places for humanity to grow, I think is a powerful one. The idea of expanding humanity into space, I think, its day will come, just like the Channel Tunnel. It sat on the dust shells of history for a long time, and now it's there, and so it's just a matter of that hurdle, that big hurdle of necessity and potential practicalities and agendas of the future. I think its day will one day come, if we have time.
If we have time. What and I wonder if we want to get into more of like your perspective on human progress and where we're headed, because we are a show that talks about the progress of humanity and how we can survive into the future, how we can develop technologies like nuclear energy, like artificial intelligence, like space flight and space technologies, and really reach a high functioning society that will combat many of the mistakes that we've made in the past.
Yes, in the end, it is our accumulated wisdom that will save us, and our willingness to use that wisdom. And we've seen so many possibilities open up. We've seen people going to the moon. We've seen our technology that has given us great possibilities. Our knowledge base is growing. So we have these converging areas of wisdom that are going to help us make these choices in the future. And I do think that it is inevitable that humanity will expand beyond Earth and perhaps one day into neighboring star systems as our technology grows and our wisdom to survive that technology triumphs. There's really the sky is no longer the limit when it comes to our potential. I tend to be an optimist in that regard, although certainly the lessons of history are fearful and grim and need to be always respected and referred to. But we have our brains, we have our ability to get a context, a cosmic context, our world context to our existence, and to move about in these realms with some accumulated wisdom.
That's wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, and thank you everyone for your contributions. Gabe, if you really leaned into your microphone, you might be able to get a word in.
Could you hear me good now?
Now we can, yeah.
You know what? I pulled out my microphone. I'm using the Mac contact mic.
There you are.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that there's cooperation between nations, like with China, Russia, United States, to get this together. It's more of an international thing, even a UN thing, you know?
I'm inclined to agree. Some kind of, a project like this is going to require the resources of the entire world, both technological and wisdom, foresight, and really all of humanity will have something to contribute to not only building these things, but to populating them. One thing I see as a potential for these giant habitats is, again, people who want to live the lives like they want to live, whatever that may be. It's getting harder and harder now you can't really set up your own nation, and it's harder to set up your own society. You've got people breathing down your neck and all kinds of regulatory things. And the idea of having a place where we can start a civilization from scratch. We should have people working on figuring out what a society might be like in such things, what kind of potential we can unlock that would make use of the lessons of history. Without acute acknowledgement of the lessons of history, we're doomed.
Yeah. Like if we don't do that, it's going to be like who's going to dominate our planet? Because if you control space, you're like a super duper power, you know. If you really have, are able to mine space and get all materials and stuff. I mean, or if you're like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, you're like you control the planet.
In the end, the collective will of humanity, of civilization, will determine what happens, I think. At some point, we're going to have some kind of, if not unity, at least a sober cooperation between the global powers. And we're going to realize that spending our greatest efforts in technology toward the ability to destroy each other is a losing proposition. And building new places for people to live, new options for humanity, is a powerful thing that I think it would be good to try to give to our descendants.
Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. This has been the Eco-Modernist Channel Live. You can find us on YouTube at Eco-Modernist1. Find us on Patreon. Please support the podcast at the Eco-Modernist Channel on Patreon. And find us on Facebook at the Eco-Modernist Society of North America, and on online at esna.earth. That's ESNA.earth. I'm Carl Pauls. You can find this rebroadcast at places like Twitch, Soyaddle, soyaddle.tv, and on LinkedIn and x.com on all my media presence there. So, and remember, emissions first, peace and justice will follow.